In ancient Japan, far from the cities and hidden deep in a forest filled with shadows and whispers, a strange boy named Kai escaped the only home he had ever known. People said demons had raised him, and even though no one knew the truth, the fear in their voices always made the story sound real. He wandered alone until Lord Asano, a noble samurai leader, found him barely alive and took him in. Everyone around the Lord warned him that Kai was dangerous and cursed. But the Lord saw something different, a spark in the boy's eyes, something powerful waiting to be shaped. Breaking all rules, Lord Asano brought Kai into his samurai household, even letting him live and train among the warriors. This decision angered many since outsiders and half-breeds were never allowed such honor. But the Lord refused to cast Kai aside. Kai grew close to Mika, Lord Asano's daughter. Their friendship turned into something deeper, but they kept their feelings hidden, knowing that even the smallest rumor could ruin both their lives. Years later, Kai became a sharp hunter and began joining Lord Asano and his warriors on dangerous expeditions. During a royal hunt, Kai spotted something strange in the forest. The prey they were tracking moved with unnatural speed and left no trail. He warned Oishi, the Lord's most trusted samurai, that something felt wrong and that they should wait and plan a trap. It would be safer to set a trap and wait for it here. But Oishi, proud and stubborn, refused to take advice from someone born outside noble blood and ordered the hunt to continue. In a second, everything was out of control. From the trees, a massive beast exploded out of the shadows and charged at the hunting party, knocking Lord Asano to the ground with terrifying force. Oishi shouted for his men to kill the monster, but nothing worked. Arrows flew, swords clashed, but the beast crushed everything in its path, tossing trained warriors through the air like broken dolls. Panic spread as the creature vanished into the forest, wounded but not defeated. Yuno, one of the proudest samurai, raced after it, determined to take the glory for himself. Kai, knowing the danger, followed close behind. When the monster turned and attacked, it knocked Yuno from his horse and prepared to finish him. Without thinking, Kai grabbed the fallen samurai's sword and ran straight toward the beast. Using its own speed against it, he drove the blade into its chest, killing it just before it could strike again. As the beast collapsed and the dust settled, Kai picked up the sword and offered it back to Yuno, expecting at least a nod of respect. But Yasuno stepped toward him, furious and humiliated. "I would rather have been killed by that beast than saved by a half-breed." Lord Asano arrived at the hunting ground and saw the great beast lying dead on the ground. Without knowing the full truth, he believed that Yasuno, the proud samurai, had killed it and quickly praised him as a hero. Filled with joy and pride, he announced that Yuno would be the province's champion in the grand tournament, and the men cheered loudly, feeling that fortune was smiling upon them at last. As the warriors began to return to the castle, Oishi glanced at Kai and noticed that his hands were still covered in the beast's blood. Though he said nothing, Oishi understood at once that it was Kai, not Yasuno, who had truly slain the monster. Meanwhile, Kai's sharp eyes caught sight of something strange. In the nearby woods, he saw a white fox with different colored eyes staring directly at him. Something about the creature felt wrong, as if the entire hunt had been a trap. Set by a hidden enemy, Kai's fears were not just in his mind. Hidden from human eyes, the fox began to twist and change, turning back into a witch who called herself Mizuki. Mizuki went straight to her master, Lord Kira, ruler of a rival province, and told him that Lord Asano was still alive. Far away at the castle, Lady Mika had grown into a beautiful young woman. When news of the hunting party's injuries reached the province, she rushed to the gates. Though she quickly saw that her father was unharmed, she could not hide her true worry, and her eyes kept searching the crowd for another. Lord Asano watched her carefully and realized with sadness that his daughter's heart belonged to Kai. Unable to hold back, Mika slipped away to the small house where Kai lived on the edge of the grounds. She found him wounded and weak from the fight. Though she desperately tried to tend to his injuries, Kai gently pushed her away, insisting that she return to her father. A woman of her standing could not risk being seen so close to a man like him, no matter how much they loved each other. "This is no place for you, my lady." That night, the shogun himself, the supreme ruler of all the provinces of Japan, arrived in Akko to join the great festival. The entire province was full of excitement as lords and warriors gathered for the coming tournament. From a distance, Kai watched the royal procession and froze when he spotted Mizuki among Lord Kira's concubines, recognizing the strange color of her eyes from the fox he had seen earlier. Wasting no time, Kai ran to Oishi's residence to warn him about the witch in their midst, explaining that Mizuki's magic could put Lord Asano in terrible danger. They say only demons have the power to see past a witch's disguise. Are you a demon? Number just like before, Oshi dismissed his warnings without a second thought, refusing to believe anything from the mouth of someone believed to be raised by demons. The next day, Lord Kira arrived in full splendor. At first, he greeted Asano politely and praised the beauty of Akko. But beneath the smiles, there was a tension that poisoned every word. Kira insulted Lord Asano by rudely mistaking Mika for his wife and suggesting she should belong to him, making the entire court fall silent in shock. Pretending nothing had happened, they moved to the tournament grounds where the matches would soon begin. Kira's champion entered the stadium, a man so large and powerful that the crowd gasped in amazement. As the first match was about to start, Yasuno caught sight of Mizuki, once again in her animal form, and quickly fell under her dark spell. His body weakened, and he stumbled, clearly unable to fight. Seeing the danger, Kai acted without hesitation. To save Lord Asano from disgrace, and to protect the honor of Akko, Kai grabbed Yuno's armor, put it on, covered his face completely, and stepped into the arena to fight in Yuno's place, hiding his true identity from the eyes of the powerful men who would surely never allow a half-breed to stand among them. After the two warriors bowed before the lords, they raised their swords and faced each other with fierce focus. In an instant, the giant samurai charged at Kai and swung his blade with terrifying strength, pushing him back with every heavy strike like a hammer pounding against steel. Kai moved quickly and found small openings, landing hits on the giant. But no matter how hard he struck, the thick armor refused to break. Then his sword finally snapped into pieces when it struck the armor again. And before Kai could react, the giant slammed into him and sent him flying out of the ring. As he hit the ground, his helmet rolled off, and the crowd gasped in shock as they realized Kai was not a samurai, but a half-breed outsider. The shogun rose in anger and stormed into the arena, filled with fury that a man of low birth had entered the sacred fight. He ordered Kai to be executed, but before the guards could move, Mika rushed to the ring and shielded Kai with her body. Lord Asano begged the shogun for mercy. The shogun gave no reply, simply walked away with cold rage and commanded that Kai be punished. The samurai of Akko were forced to rip the armor from Kai's body and beat him in front of everyone. The blows came one after another until Kai lay unconscious and broken on the ground. That night, Mizuki whispered lies into Kira's ears and told him that Asano's mind was damaged by shame, and now was the best time to destroy him. Using blood from Kira's hand, Mizuki summoned a magical spider, a creature filled with poison. Moving through the shadows, Mizuki snuck into Asano's chamber and released the spider, letting its venom enter his body. Soon the poison twisted his mind and made him see horrifying things. In his madness, Asano imagined his daughter being taken by Kira, and his rage exploded. He grabbed his sword and rushed into Kira's room, where he was about to slash and wound the man. But before anything could happen, the guards dragged him away. The palace woke in chaos, and when the shogun arrived and heard what happened, he declared that Asano must die for attacking a guest under his roof. But instead of a dishonorable death, the shogun allowed Asano to die by seppuku, the sacred ritual of a samurai. His family watched in tears as he knelt, took the blade, and ended his life with honor. After Lord Asano's death, the shogun announced that Mika would be married to Kira in order to mend the conflicts between the two houses, but only gave her 1 year to mourn for her father's death. The shogun then forbade Oishi and his men from seeking revenge and declared they were now ronin without a master. Their fate was now in Kira's hands. Without wasting time, Kira took over the province of Akko, banished the ronin, and dragged Kai away in chains to become his slave, while Mika stood helplessly and watched everything fall apart. To finish what he started, Kira threw Oishi into a dark prison cell, hoping the silence and suffering would destroy the last spark of revenge left in a loyal warrior's heart. 1 year passed and Kira's men finally dragged Oishi out of the underground prison and dumped him on the streets. His wife and son quickly found him and brought him to safety. When he woke up, he learned that everything had changed. All the samurai had been scattered. Kai had been sold as a slave, and the province no longer belonged to them. Without wasting time, Oishi told his son to get the horses ready. "We need 3 horses now." They rode without stopping until they reached the Dutch islands. There, Oi found a brutal fighting pit, and in the middle of the arena, Kai was locked in a deadly battle with a massive beast-like fighter. Every attack from the creature was meant to kill, but Kai dodged, struck back, and finally slashed across its stomach before cutting off its head, wrapping up the fight with the crowd going wild. As soon as the battle ended, Oishi stepped into the ring and tried to speak with Kai. But Kai lunged at him with rage. He blamed Oishi for what had happened to Lord Asano and refused to listen. The 2 men clashed, anger bursting between them. But the fight stopped the moment Oishi mentioned that. Lady Mika was still alive and being held prisoner. That one truth broke Kai's anger. Together they turned on the slave masters and fought their way through the arena, burning the whole place down before escaping under the night sky. Once they reached safety, Oishi revealed the truth. Mika would be forced to marry Kira in just 1 week. He had a plan to gather every surviving samurai and take revenge for their master's death. With deep regret, he apologized for not believing Kai about the witch and asked him to join the mission. "I don't know who or what you are, but I need your help." Kai, filled with purpose again, agreed. They rode to a hidden meeting place where the last remaining Ronin had gathered, each one ready to follow Oishi once more. He told them that Kira would leave the castle soon to visit his ancestors and receive blessings for the marriage. And that was when they would strike. One samurai was sent to spy and learn the exact date of Kira's journey, while the others went with Oishi to gather weapons. But when they reached the nearest town, they found it locked down by Kira's guards, and every shop and forge was under watch. No one could get weapons. That night, Kai shared an idea. There was another way to get weapons, but it meant venturing into the Sea of Trees, a cursed forest filled with demons called the Tangus. With no other option, the Ronin agreed. They rode into the thick forest where sunlight barely touched the ground and arrived at a huge statue of Buddha buried in the woods. Kai told everyone to stay behind, except for Oishi, who followed him deeper into the forest. Inside a dark cave, Kai warned Oishi that no matter what happened, he must not draw his sword. "Whatever happens in there, whatever you see, don't draw your weapon." Oishi nodded, unsure of what was to come. They entered the next chamber and found monks kneeling in silence before the giant Buddha statue. Kai walked past them deeper into the mountain and left Oishi behind. Inside a smaller cave, Kai found a single glowing katana placed in the center of the room. A Tang demon stepped forward from the shadows. It was Kai's former master, the same one he had escaped from many years ago. The demon welcomed him back and questioned why he would return to help those who had once hated him. Kai replied with calm honesty, saying those men were trying to do something right. The demon tried to break his spirit, reminding him that the world had nothing left to give and that he would never be with Mika. "No matter what you do, Mika will never be yours in this life." But Kai stood firm and accepted that fate. He promised that even if he could not be with her in this life, he would find her in the next. Impressed by his determination, the demon challenged him. If Kai truly wanted the blade, he would have to take it. Both of them lifted into the air using their magic, flying toward the sword. But it was Kai who reached it first. He grabbed the weapon, and in that moment, the student finally surpassed the master. Back inside the forest, Oishi turned to see that his men had entered the temple, even though he had warned them not to. Among them, Yasuno stepped forward and pulled out a sword when he noticed strange creatures lying still on the ground. Suddenly, the demons rose and started attacking the samurai, using dark magic that made them impossible to hit. One by one, the Ronin were struck down by invisible forces, falling helplessly around Oishi. Seeing the slaughter, Oishi felt his hand go toward his sword, his instincts telling him to fight back. But just before he acted, he remembered Kai's warning to never draw his blade inside the temple. So he held back, struggling against his own fear until every one of his men had fallen. Then everything changed. The temple returned to silence. The demons disappeared, it had all been an illusion. A final test from the Tang demons to see if Oishi could control himself. Because he had passed, dozens of gleaming katanas suddenly appeared before them, proving that they had earned the right to bear the sacred blades. With their weapons in hand, the group left the forest and traveled to the farmhouse, where the other Ronin were hiding. Not long after arriving, one of the samurai returned with urgent news. Kira would be leaving for the shrines that night. This was the moment they had been waiting for. Oi quickly gathered all the men and prepared them for a surprise attack. As night fell, the Ronins crept through the fields of hay toward the shrine, where they spotted a figure that looked just like Kira, standing with only 2 guards beside him. The Ronins got into position, thinking they had the advantage. But when the figure turned, they saw it was the witch Mizuki. She unleashed a burst of fire that lit the field around them, trapping the Ronins in a burning ring of flames. Before they could react, arrows rained from the darkness, striking down many of the samurai. Then the giant samurai appeared from the shadows and tore through the group with terrifying strength. The survivors ran for their lives, scattering back toward the farmhouse in total defeat. Once they made it back, Oishi stood in silence, filled with guilt and hopelessness. He asked what they were supposed to do now. Their ambush was ruined, and so many lives were lost. But Kai stepped forward and reminded him that all was not lost. They still had the weapons. And more importantly, they still had the element of surprise. We still have swords and the advantage of surprise. Kira thinks we're ghosts. We can use that. Turn it to our advantage. The next morning, while watching the road near Kira's castle, Kai spotted a group of wedding performers on their way to the ceremony. That moment sparked a new idea. The Ronins ambushed the group and took their clothes, disguising themselves as entertainers so they could slip inside the heavily guarded fortress without being noticed. That night, the Ronins passed through the gates dressed in costume. They joined the performers inside the castle while the guards watched without suspicion. Meanwhile, Lord Kira sat beside Lady Mika, ready to begin the wedding that would give him full control over Akko. The guests watched the entertainment without realizing danger was close. On stage, Oishi and the others danced and played their parts to distract the crowd. Behind the scenes, the hidden Ronins quietly grabbed their swords and moved through the fortress, taking out guards silently and quickly. As the performance continued, Oishi stepped closer and closer to the stage where Kira sat. His blade, hidden within a prop, was now within reach. The moment felt right. He grabbed the weapon and rushed forward to strike. But just as he lunged, an arrow pierced through the air and knocked him back. The guards had spotted him. Panic erupted in the hall. The guests screamed, and chaos exploded as everyone realized the wedding had been a trap. As soon as the Ronins stormed the castle, they clashed with the soldiers in a violent fight, while Kira panicked and fled, dragging Mika with him to hide inside the castle halls. Before the Ronins could follow, the giant armored samurai came charging at them like he was out to wreck everything in sight. But the trap they had set earlier exploded beneath his feet, blowing him apart and clearing the path forward. Kai and Oshi pushed ahead together, slicing through wave after wave of enemy guards who tried to block their way. Every corner turned into a fight, but neither man stopped, determined to end the battle. In the chaos, Mika managed to break free from Kira and sprinted in the opposite direction, desperate to escape the madness. Realizing his advantage slipping away, Kira abandoned everything and ran deeper into the castle, focused only on saving himself. Oi took a different path, chasing the fleeing lord, while Kai turned toward Mika, fighting off more guards as he raced to reach her. Mika burst into the open courtyard, and then she saw Kai. Without thinking, she ran to him, and they finally embraced each other in the middle of the battlefield. But just as they held each other, a ghostly white kimono floated through the air and landed between them. The fabric shimmered, then shifted into the terrifying form of the witch Mizuki, who had come to kill them both. As she walked toward them, her body began to change again, stretching and growing into a monstrous dragon that hovered in the air, its eyes burning with rage. The creature lunged at Kai with a roar, forcing him to fight for his life. He blocked her attacks and struck back with precise swings, managing to wound her and drive her back, at least for the moment. He shouted for Mika to hide behind the courtyard wall while he prepared himself for one final battle, against the dragon. Meanwhile, Oshi reached the next chamber and saw Kira trying to hide in the shadows. Without hesitation, Oshi burst through the thin walls, swinging his blade and forcing the cowardly lord to retreat further inside. He chased Kira across the room and struck him down, sending him tumbling across the floor as he tried to crawl away. Fueled by anger and the memory of his fallen master, Oishi threw the man down and kicked him until he could no longer move. Then he pulled out the same blade their lord had once used to end his own life and drove it straight into Kira's heart. Without hesitation, he followed with a clean strike that severed Kira's head. Oishi walked back outside, covered in dust and blood, holding the severed head high for everyone to see. As the Ronin gathered, they stared in silence at the proof of victory. The soldiers who had once fought for Kira dropped their weapons and surrendered without another word. The battle was finally over. Their lord's honor had been avenged. As the battle inside the burning castle raged on, Kai faced the dragon alone. He struck its face again and again, but the creature roared in fury and unleashed a stream of fire from its mouth meant to burn everything in its path. Kai raised his blade and split the flames apart, using the sword's power to make the dragon's magic useless. He moved in to finish it, but the dragon caught his katana in its claws and flung him high through the air, slamming him to the ground far from his weapon. Roaring with rage, the dragon turned toward Mika, ready to destroy her. For a moment, it seemed like she would be its next victim. But Kai, bruised and bloodied, called upon the Tang magic within him. The sword flew to his hand, and he sprinted with everything he had left, leaping into the sky as the dragon lunged. With one final strike, he drove the blade through the monster's head. The creature collapsed with a thunderous scream, its body shifting and twisting as it changed back into Mizuki. Her magic faded with her dying breath, and the threat that had haunted them was finally gone. The Ronins made their way back to Akko, where they stood together before their fallen lord's grave. Oshi placed the dagger that had killed Kira onto the shrine, giving it as a final tribute to the man they had avenged. News of Kira's death reached the shogun. Though he was bound to uphold the law, he recognized the honor in what the Ronin had done. He ordered them all to die but allowed them to perform seppuku, the sacred ritual that would restore their honor, and let them die as true samurai, just as their master had. As the day came, and Mika stood and watched from a distance, tears filled her eyes as Kai and the others prepared for the final ritual. Her heart ached knowing she would never see him again in this life. Standing alone on the bridge, she looked across the hills and sky, holding on to Kai's final promise that he would find her again in the next life.